The rain hadn't stopped all morning. It felt like the sky was grieving with me. I stood there in black umbrella, shaking in the wind, watching them lower my mother's casket into the ground. Mud splashed up with every drop. The priest spoke softly, but I barely heard a word. My hands were ice, my throat tight. Everyone around me cried except the one person who should have been right beside me. My father, Charles Hastings, real estate tycoon, public philanthropist, private ghost. He was supposed to be there. Instead, he sent a 3-word text the night before. Business in Dubai. That was it. No, I'm sorry. No call, no flowers. Just like that, he vanished from the moment that broke me. But what really got to me, Toro, was the man standing beneath the trees. A stranger, far from the crowd, wearing a long coat, hands in his pockets. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at me. I felt it, like heat on the back of my neck, like he knew something I didn't. I turned to look again. He was gone. At first, I thought maybe I imagined him. Grief does that, twists things. But something about his presence lingered. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment still wearing my funeral dress. Still wet, still hollow. My mom's photos were spread out across the rug, her laugh frozen in still frames. My heart ached in ways I didn't have words for. And then my phone buzzed. I almost didn't check it, but something made me look. One message, no contact name, just 5 words. You buried the wrong person. I read it twice. Then again, my chest locked up. My blood went cold. Was it a prank? Some cruel scam. Someone messing with a grieving daughter. But my gut said something else. Because somewhere deep down, under all the pain, all the disbelief, a single question started echoing inside me. What if they were right? I didn't sleep that night. I just kept staring at the message on my screen. You buried the wrong person. I wanted to believe it was a mistake, a hacker, a prank, a glitch. But no matter how many times I told myself that my gut said otherwise. And that's when I remembered the call, the last time I ever spoke to my mom. It was 5 days before the funeral. She sounded off. Her voice was softer, slower, like she was choosing every word carefully. She said, "Claire, if anything ever happens to me, promise me you'll look for the truth, not the story people tell you, the real one." I laughed it off, thought she was being dramatic. I even teased her like I always did. But now her words echoed like a warning I never listened to. And it didn't stop there. I started thinking about all the weird little things she'd done before she died. She canceled all her art classes with no warning, stopped showing up to her gallery events, said she was feeling off but never went into detail. And then she took down every single family photo from her studio. Said she was remodeling but nothing ever changed. She just erased our faces. At the time, I thought maybe she was grieving the marriage. But now I wonder if she was trying to erase him, my father. And then there was the will. 2 weeks before her heart stopped, she asked me to come by her lawyer's office, said she was updating some documents. Everything felt rushed, urgent. She barely looked me in the eye. Now I realize she was scared, but scared of who that question burned through me. So I did what most people do when they don't have answers. I went online. I pulled up my dad's social media. He hadn't posted a single thing about my mother, not a photo, not a tribute, nothing. But what I did see was a new post. Him, standing barefoot on a yacht, champagne in one hand, arm wrapped around a tall woman in a red bikini. The caption, "New Beginnings." My jaw clenched so hard I thought I'd crack a tooth. While I was burying my mother under gray skies, he was drinking champagne under the sun with Nina, his business associate, a name I'd heard before, whispers during dinner parties, quiet phone calls late at night. The woman my mom once said gave her a bad feeling. Everything clicked. All at once. And in that moment, I knew the message wasn't a prank. The warning wasn't a lie, and my mom's death might not have been a death at all. It was just the beginning. I couldn't get the image out of my head, my dad smiling on a yacht, while I stood in the rain burying a woman I wasn't even sure was dead. That message, "You buried the wrong person," it had cracked something open in me, and now there was no going back. I had to know who sent it. I spent the next morning doing what any rational, emotionally stable person would do. I became a full-blown cyberstalker. Spoofed numbers, SMS lookups, burner tracing apps, hours of Googling stuff I probably shouldn't know how to Google. And I found it. The message came from a burner phone, bought at a gas station just outside Portland. No ID, no trail, no name, just one text, one single text. But it was enough to light a fire. Later that night, I was brushing my teeth when I heard something outside. Not loud, just deliberate. I froze, then tiptoed to the front door. And there it was, an envelope. No stamp, no name. Just sitting on my welcome mat like it had been placed there gently. I looked around. Empty street? No footsteps? No car pulling away? Nothing. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside, a photo. Not an old one, not a scan. A real photo. Glossy, crisp. It was my mother, wearing the same jacket she used to wear to her gallery showings, hair in a bun, holding a sketch pad. The photo was dated yesterday, and she was alive. I dropped the envelope, heart in my throat. My mom wasn't dead. Someone had lied, or covered it up, or both. At the bottom of the envelope was a tiny note written in red ink. Just one sentence. "Meet me where your mother first taught you to paint. Come alone." I didn't hesitate. I threw on my coat, grabbed my keys, and got in the car. There was only one place that message could be talking about: the greenhouse. When I was 10, my mom transformed the old greenhouse behind our estate into a studio. Paint stains on every tile, sunlight filtering through cracked glass. It smelled like lavender and turpentine, and it was ours. I hadn't been back there in years. The gate creaked as I pushed it open. The wind had picked up. Leaves scattered across the path like they were running from something. I stepped inside, glass crunching beneath my shoes. Everything was exactly how we left it. Canvas, easels, that old metal stool she always complained about but never replaced. And then I saw her, standing in the corner, pale, soaked, alive. My mom! My voice cracked when I whispered, "Mom." She turned, and when our eyes met, the world stopped. It wasn't a ghost. It wasn't a dream. It was her, Margot Hastings, the woman I buried just days ago, standing in front of me like she had never left. Her lip trembled. Then she whispered, "It's really you." I dropped everything and ran to her, held her like I'd never let go. But even in that moment, even with tears running down my face and her heartbeat pressed against mine, one thought kept repeating in my mind. If she was alive, then who wanted her dead? I didn't know what to say. I just stood there staring at her, this woman I thought I had lost forever. My mother, alive, shaking, but alive. We sat on the cold stone bench inside the greenhouse, rain still tapping on the glass above us. And then she told me everything. Not the version in the obituary. Not the eulogy the priest gave. The real story. It started 3 months ago. Her art foundation, the non-profit she spent years building, started attracting big investors, gallery owners from New York, private donors from Europe. It was finally becoming something more than just a passion project. But that made it valuable, and valuable things attract dangerous people, especially my father. Charles Hastings didn't care about art. He cared about leverage, control, money, and according to my mom, he wanted the foundation under his name. When she refused to sign over ownership, things changed. At first, it was small, bank accounts freezing, emails deleted, backroom meetings she wasn't invited to. Then it got worse. She started feeling sick all the time. Headaches, dizzy spells, chest pain that came out of nowhere. She thought it was stress, until the night she collapsed. She told me she woke up in a hospital bed, barely conscious, and saw my father standing over her. Not holding her hand, not asking if she was okay. He was holding a stack of papers. Contracts. She remembers him saying, "Sign these while you still can." And when she said no, he just walked out, didn't even look back. I felt sick listening to her. But the story wasn't over. That's when she told me about Dr. Celine Carter, a retired ER doctor, once saved from a car crash by my mom years ago. They stayed friends ever since. Celine had been working night shifts at the hospital when my mom came in. She noticed something was off. She ran private blood work and found traces of digitalis toxin, a poison. Someone had been dosing my mom slowly over time, small enough to look like natural heart failure. Celine knew if my mom stayed in that hospital, she wouldn't walk out. So, together, they came up with a plan. They used a cardiac blocker to simulate death. Low heart rate, no pulse, just long enough to fake it. They logged the time of death, switched her out during transport, used a cremation order, and slipped her out the back exit. Officially, she died. Legally, she was gone. But in reality, she was hiding. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I asked her the only question my brain could form. "Why didn't you tell me?" She looked at me, eyes filled with guilt, with fear, because I didn't know if he was watching you too. Then she said it. The one sentence I'll never forget. "Claire, he doesn't just want me gone. He wants you too." I froze. All the air in the greenhouse turned to ice. She said, once he realized he couldn't control her, he started moving everything into my name. Quietly. Secretly. So that when she was dead, I'd be the legal heir. The legal target. I wasn't just a grieving daughter. I was leverage. I was bait. That's when she introduced me to someone else. A man stepped out from the shadows near the greenhouse door. Tall, dark coat, same man from the funeral. His name was Silas, former private investigator, now working off-grid. Mom had hired him months ago when the threat started. His job, protect me, from a distance. Without me even knowing, he's the one who sent the photo, the message, the envelope. He'd been watching the whole time, making sure I didn't end up in the same coffin they tried to put her in. I looked at both of them. The woman who gave me life, and the stranger who just saved it. And that's when I understood something I hadn't before. This wasn't over. It hadn't even started. We left that greenhouse before sunrise. Silas didn't want us staying in one place for too long. Too many eyes in Portland. Too many ears. So we went off-grid. An old friend of my mom's, a painter, let us stay at her remote cabin along the Oregon coast. No neighbors, no cameras, no cell service unless you hiked up a hill and stood on a rock. Which, honestly, felt safer than anything I'd known in weeks. The cabin was small, but cozy. Paintings covered every wall. Mom slept in the loft. I took the couch. And Silas, well, he worked. He barely slept. Didn't talk much, but every time I woke up, he was there. Laptop open, headphones in, eyes scanning spreadsheets, PDFs, court filings. He was hunting. And then 3 days in, he found gold, shell corporations, fake names, empty LLCs stacked inside each other like Russian nesting dolls. And all of them traced back to my father. But that wasn't the worst part. There were documents, real estate transfers, trust amendments, loan applications, all signed by me. Except I never signed any of them. My name, my initials, my handwriting, all forged. He'd been building a paper trail, one that made it look like I gave him control, like I handed him my mother's foundation, my inheritance, my future. It was all an illusion, one I didn't even know I was living in, and suddenly the picture was clearer than ever. He didn't just want my mom gone. He wanted me to look complicit. He wanted the world to think I gave everything to him. So when she died, Ito and I inherited it all. He could step in, play the grieving husband, and take it legally, cleanly, without lifting a finger. Silas looked up at me and said, "He's not playing defense anymore. He's on offense." And I knew then I had to play too. So I made a decision. I told my mom and Silas I was going back. To the mansion. To my father. Not for real, just for the game. I'd pretend I didn't know anything. Play the grieving daughter, let him think I was soft, that I was broken. Buy time, get close, make him feel safe. Mom hated the idea, begged me not to go, but we both knew it was the only way to get ahead of him. So the next morning, I packed a bag, took a deep breath, and drove straight into the mouth of the wolf. The Hastings estate looked the same as always. Polished. Perfect. Fake. My father greeted me at the front door like I was a guest in my own childhood home. He smiled, hugged me, offered tea. I smiled back, lied with every word. He said, "Claire, I'm so glad you came home. We've got so much to sort through." And that's when I met her. Nina. She wasn't just lounging by the pool in designer sunglasses anymore. She was sitting beside him, laptop open, talking strategy. My father introduced her with a straight face. "This is Nina. She's helping us with all the legal transitions." Legal transitions. That's when it hit me. Nina wasn't just some girlfriend. She was his lawyer, a corporate attorney trained in mergers and acquisitions, which meant she knew how to bury things, how to manipulate paperwork, how to erase people. She smiled at me like we were equals, like I was some naive little girl playing grown-up in a room full of sharks. And in that moment, I knew. I wasn't just up against my father. I was up against both of them. And if I was going to survive this, I had to be smarter than both put together. I knew walking back into that house meant stepping into enemy territory, but I didn't expect it to feel this familiar. The same polished floors, the same marble staircase, even the same faint scent of my mother's perfume, though I knew that had long been scrubbed away. My father greeted me with a smile, so tight it looked like it hurt. He poured me tea, asked about my health, said how difficult this must be. He never mentioned Mom by name, just the estate, as if she was already reduced to assets and tax forms. I played along, nodded, smiled, told him I just wanted to help get everything in order. He offered to show me the documents himself, said his lawyers were still drafting a few pieces, but the major transitions had been handled. He didn't know I already knew everything. What he didn't know was that I had planted a recording device inside my necklace, a small mic hidden behind the clasp. Silas's idea, just in case anything slipped. And something did slip. That night, we had dinner in the grand dining room, the one we only used when reporters or politicians were over. He poured wine, made toast, tried to act like the grieving father who just wanted to move on. But then his mask cracked. Just a little. He asked if I had any questions about Mom's finances, or her foundation, or why the board had voted to dissolve it so quickly. I asked, did she even know they were voting? He smiled. That politician smile. Then said, "Claire, sometimes when people aren't mentally stable, the world has to move on without them." My blood ran cold. He wasn't even pretending anymore. He was rewriting the narrative, casting her as unstable, unreliable, setting the stage. So if anyone ever did ask questions, they'd already doubt her. That was the moment I knew he hadn't just wanted control. He wanted to erase her entirely. After dinner, while he was upstairs making calls, I slipped into his office. The room hadn't changed since I was a kid. Same bookshelf, same rug, same stupid globe bar. But what caught my attention was the painting on the wall behind his desk. Tilted, off-center. I pulled it back. There it was, a wall safe. He had changed the keypad, but I tried the one number I knew he'd never forget, my mom's birthday. It clicked open. Inside were 3 folders and a flash drive. One folder had a forged prenup with Mom's signature on the last page, even though she never signed one. I knew that for a fact. The second held a backdated death certificate listing a completely different time of death than what was on her medical records. The third, a will, stamped, sealed, filed through a court in Nevada, and it named him as the sole beneficiary. Not me, not even Mom's charity, just him. I copied everything, snapped photos, downloaded the flash drive onto my phone, and just as I was slipping the safe shut, I heard his voice behind me. Looking for something, I turned slowly. He was leaning in the doorway, arms crossed. Calm. Too calm. I forced a smile. Said I got lost looking for my old journals. He didn't blink, didn't move, just stared. Then he said, "If you keep digging, Claire, you'll be next." Just like that. No anger, no yelling. Just a quiet threat wrapped in fatherly concern, and that scared me more than anything, because in that moment I saw exactly what he was capable of. Not just manipulation, not just fraud, but the cold, calculated ability to erase anyone who got in his way, including me. That night I couldn't sleep, not after what he said. If you keep digging, you'll be next. It wasn't just a threat, it was a promise, and I knew I didn't have time. So I texted Silas. "One word tonight." He replied instantly, "I'll bring the gear." We waited until after midnight, when the staff had gone home, when my father's bedroom light finally went dark. Then we moved. Silas parked 2 blocks down, and we came in through the side garden, the one with the broken security light no one ever bothered to fix. He picked the lock like he'd done it 100 times, because he probably had. And just like that, we were inside. The air was cold, still, like the whole house was holding its breath. We didn't speak, didn't need to. We both knew the plan. Straight to the office. We found the safe again behind the painting. But this time, Silas pulled out something that looked like a mini drill, and a flash drive had a baby. He called it a safe skimmer. I didn't ask questions. Less than 2 minutes later, click. The safe opened. And inside, hard drives, 3 of them, labeled with nothing but colored tape. Red, blue, white. We grabbed all 3. Then Silas went to the desk and pulled out a second flash drive hidden in the false bottom of a drawer. He knew it would be there. "This is what your dad really doesn't want," he whispered. We were back out in under 12 minutes. Not a sound, not a trace. We drove straight to the cabin, and what we found on those drives changed everything. The red drive was mostly financials, but tucked inside a folder labeled archive we found an audio file. It was my father, yelling, screaming, threatening my mom, telling her she was worth more gone than dragging the family name down, that no one would miss a failed artist with no spine. I heard it with my own ears, his voice, his words, and it broke something in me I didn't even know was still intact. The blue drive held video file security footage. One clip showed my mother being wheeled through the hospital hallway, unconscious, the timestamp just 2 hours before the official time of death. She was alive, barely, but alive. And the man walking behind the gurney, Charles Hastings. Suit perfectly pressed, expression unreadable. He wasn't grieving. He was watching, making sure. The white drive was full of scanned documents transfer forms, amendments power of attorney, all with my name on them, all forged. He hadn't just stolen from her. He'd tried to erase me too. Silas leaned back in his chair and said, "This is enough to sink him twice, but I wasn't ready to hand it over, not just yet." We made backup copies, 3 sets. One went to the FBI, one to a federal financial crimes unit. We mailed them anonymously. No names, no return address, but the originals, I kept those. Because the truth is, I didn't just want justice. I wanted him to know it was me, that I was the one who saw behind the mask, that I was the daughter he thought he could control, and I was done being afraid of him, done running, because now I had proof. and soon the whole world would see who Charles Hastings really was. By the end of the week, I was done waiting. We had the evidence. We sent the files. We played our part. Now it was time to let him play his. I called my father, told him I was overwhelmed, scared, confused, ready to do what's best for the family. He bought it in seconds. He said he'd arrange a meeting, something low pressure, just the three of us. Me, him, and Nina. Of course. He told me to meet them at his corporate law office late at night to avoid media attention. Translation: no witnesses. Classic Charles Hastings. Silas insisted on coming with me, but I said no. I needed to walk in there alone. I needed them to believe I was folding. But what they didn't know was that the room would be bugged, that agents were already listening, and that Silas wasn't far. When I walked into that conference room, they were already sitting there. My father stood and smiled like we were about to share dessert. Nina barely looked at me, just slid a stack of papers across the table. "Everything's been prepared," she said. "Just your signature and we can close the books." I looked down. They had laid it all out. The foundation, the properties, the trust accounts, every asset my mom had fought for. And all of it would transfer to my father once I signed. I paused, pretended to hesitate. Then I said, "Okay, but before I sign, can I show you something?" They exchanged a quick glance. Nina shifted uncomfortably. Charles gave me a tight smile. "Of course, sweetheart." I reached into my bag, pulled out a small manila folder, opened it. Inside, 3 full-color photos, all taken within the last 72 hours. My mother, smiling, alive, very much not buried. The blood drained from Nina's face. She backed up an inch in her chair. Charles, he didn't flinch, but I saw it, the twitch in his jaw, the way his fingers curled slowly into fists. I looked him in the eye and said, "You forgot something, Dad. You buried the wrong woman." He stood, slowly, deliberately, and then he snapped. He lunged across the table, grabbed the papers, and screamed, "Where is she? What did you do?" Nina shouted his name, tried to calm him down, but he shoved her aside, and then the door burst open. FBI agents swarmed the room, guns drawn, badges out. Charles froze mid-step. One agent barked, "Charles Hastings, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted murder, money laundering, and obstruction of justice." Charles turned to me, his face twisted with rage. "You set me up," he hissed. "You ungrateful little—" He didn't get to finish, because that's when Silas stepped out from behind the agents and decked him. One clean hit, straight to the jaw. Charles collapsed to the floor, out cold. The agents cuffed him while Nina stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, not because she was innocent, but because her deal was gone. She was going down too. Another agent turned to her. "Nina Carson, you're under arrest for aiding and abetting financial crimes and conspiracy to defraud the United States." And just like that, it was over. I stood there, heart pounding, watching them drag away the man who once called himself my father. He looked back at me, eyes filled with venom. "You'll regret this," he said. I smiled. "No, you will." The next morning, it was everywhere. News alerts, headlines, live interviews, widow returns from the dead to expose billionaire husband, Portland power couple, unraveled by daughter's secret investigation, attempted murder forgery, and a fortune, the fall of Charles Hastings. It didn't feel real. It didn't feel like justice. It felt like survival finally given a voice. The trial started 2 months later. Courtroom packed. Cameras outside. Whispers everywhere. When I took the stand, I looked straight at him. The man who raised me. The man who lied, who stole, who tried to erase my mother and nearly erased me too. I told them everything. Not just the crimes, But the gaslighting, the manipulation, the fear. And when my mom walked up to testify, you could hear a pin drop. She was calm, poised, but you could feel the weight of what she'd survived in every word she said. She didn't ask for sympathy. She spoke the truth and let the evidence speak with her. The jury didn't take long. Charles Hastings was sentenced to 35 years in federal prison. Nina Carson got 15. White-collar crimes might not always carry weight, but this time they did. After the verdict, we didn't stick around. We packed our things, sold what we didn't need, and moved east to Asheville, North Carolina. Quiet town, clean air, no marble floors, no PR dinners, just real people and real peace. My mom and I opened a small art and design studio, something simple. We named it Second Light Studio Margot and Claire. It wasn't just a business, it was a promise that we would build something beautiful, something honest, something no one could steal from us. Life slowed down. We painted, we worked with local artists. Kids came in after school just to hang out and learn. It was more than healing. It was home. And then one night, months later, we were sitting on the porch watching the sunset, tea in hand, blankets wrapped around our legs. And I asked her mom that message, the first one I got. From your number, the one that said, "You buried the wrong person." That wasn't you, was it? She blinked, looked at me slowly, then said, "No." My phone was gone by then. I didn't send anything. So I turned to Silas. He was leaning on the porch rail, staring out at the trees. I said, "Was it you?" He looked confused, shook his head. "I didn't even have your number back then." We all went silent, staring at each other, and then at the sea of trees beyond the porch. No one said it out loud, but we were all thinking the same thing. Then who sent it? Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe someone was looking out for us. Or maybe fate wasn't ready to let the lie win. I smiled, closed my eyes. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt free. We lost everything. Money, reputation, even each other, for a while. But what we found in the end was something we'd never had before. Peace. And as I stood by the shore waves crashing gently at my feet, I whispered into the wind, "We're finally free." If this story moved you, made you hold your breath, or gave you chills, tell us in the comments what moment hit you hardest. We drop brand new stories like this every single day, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the next twist. You're not gonna believe what's coming next.